welcome to another Bitcoin update. Today is the 3rd of January, and I just want to go through some of what's transpired in the market, just to give you guys an idea of exactly what's going on. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and click the right bell to stay in the loop with the latest Bitcoin trading trends. So let's dive into it. So at the moment, Bitcoin stands at around 43,287, which is a 7 to 8% dump from where it was yesterday. So we've seen a downtrend, and we can see that by clear bearish trend bars on the 4 hour, on the 2 hour, on the 1 hour, all the way down. So the market mood at the moment, it's trending bearish on the short-term time frame, but we're looking to see exactly how Bitcoin is going to behave moving forward. Before we get into the trade analysis, let's take a look at the trade I am currently in. So yesterday I managed to get into a trade, a nice short, and it was a lower high supply zone setup. And let me just show you exactly where I entered that trade from. So as we can see, we're currently still in that trade. It was a 50x leverage trade with entry at 44,998, and we're currently still in that trade at around 300% profit. So I've collected some profit out of that trade, and exactly I've moved my stop loss to entry. So what does that mean? Well, that means it's going to be a winning trade regardless. So let's go back into the market and let's see how I was able to enter that trade. As we can see on the 4 hour, yesterday we discussed that the 4 hour has not yet printed a low yet. We said this wasn't a low, and actually we've had a bullish break in structure. Now that break in structure, although bullish, is not substantial. It's not a massive burst up. It's just an incremental increase from the last low. So we're quite apprehensive as to what's going on. Is it a short-term manipulation to trap some traders, to trap all the long traders? We're not quite sure yet. But what we can see on the 4 hour is that this bearish, this bearish markdown that we've seen recently has come all the way down to wick the 4 hour week low that was created yesterday. So this week low has now been wicked. And what does that mean? Well, in terms of Bitcoin's behavior, what that means, is that until this level is closed, we can't quite get bearish. Until, we have a bearish bar closed beyond this point, we can't quite get bearish. And even though some may think it's a wick, on Bybit, we can see that, the low of this bar does not surpass the low of the previous week low. So there may be room for more potential downside. We may have a potential, actual wick, which means we may have some bearish bars coming. Or, of course, because we've printed, a high and we've broken this 4 hour structure, the expectation of order flow is indeed, a low to get us ready for a high. So maybe that's exactly what's about to happen. Perhaps we're about to test this 12-hour supply, which we spoke about yesterday. We're not quite sure yet, but this is a very, very bearish bar, and it's a very aggressive one. So we have to be really cautious as to what's going on in the market. Just to give you an idea of that trade that I entered yesterday and how I entered it, well, I could see that on the 15 minute, actually we go on the 12 minute, Bitcoin was printing a series of high highs and high lows, okay? And we topped at this point here, which I mentioned on the stream yesterday. And at this point, we started to have, a change in structure on the internal perspective. And that change in structure left us with two things that we needed to pay attention to. First of all, it created a 45-minute supply zone. So we can see here that we have a 45-minute supply zone that was left over. And secondly, we can see all this inefficiency, all this fair value gaps that would have been created. And what do fair value gaps end up getting? What happens to fair value gaps? They end up getting filled. Okay, so that was a reason for Bitcoin to actually, trend downwards. And as aggressively as it went up, it also came down. So what actually transpired, if we go back to the 12 minute, we can see then that price marks down from the high, and then it created, an internal lower high. And in doing so, it attempted to mitigate that 45-minute supply. This is the 45-minute supply. And whilst doing that, okay, regardless of that, why did I enter the trade? Whilst doing that, the reason I entered the trade is as price was doing that, let's look at what Market Cipher was doing. Well, Market Cipher was printing higher highs and the momentum waves were printing lower lows. That's what we call a bearish divergence. And as we can see, shortly after we get the aggressive mark down, for an over 6% move to the downside. As I say, I'm still currently in that trade. I'm watching to see what happens next, but I have moved my stop loss to entry. So right now my stop loss is no longer up there to cover the highs. It's right here. Okay, so it's a winning trade regardless, and that's exactly how we like to trade. So de-risk your trades as soon as possible. So what does the future look like? What are we thinking in terms of what Bitcoin could potentially do next? Well, as we say, if we look at a 4-hour, Bitcoin has gone down to test that low, but the expectation of order flow is a lower high. The expectation of order flow is a high low. Okay, so for that high low, that could come at around here, and we're not quite sure exactly where that could come. We've got a wick down, which means we have to draw it all the way down here, but we're not quite sure. So at times like this, I'm not surprised if a lot of traders decide to sit back and let price action show its hand, let Bitcoin show its hand as to what to do next. But potential areas to be watching out for remains the same as yesterday. 12-hour supply, that's still in play, as well as these levels over here, obviously the one we wicked. Some of you may have entered that trade actually. If we go, we had a trading level here which would have been tagged to the actual dollar, but that's a very difficult trade to enter. Why? Because there is no clear market structure as we approach that level. That would have had to be a limit order. Of course you'd have been in profit at the moment, but it's very unlikely you would have caught that in live market action. So there is another level lower down here, which is a naked point of control, and a 382 level, which is worth keeping your eye on. But at the moment, what are we looking out for? We're looking out for, if Bitcoin goes up, we're looking for a short at that 12-hour supply. And if Bitcoin continues to go down, well, if it breaks that 4-hour level, well, what can we expect? Well, if it breaks that 4-hour level, what we can expect in that case is for it to retrace, because after every break in the structure, we expect a retracement. So we expect something like this, a retracement after the break, okay, for a high, and then the actual leg down. So this would be where I'm looking to enter another short if I was going to enter one. All right, so there we have it. That wraps things up in terms of our daily updates. Remember, for each and every trade, make sure you're practicing good risk management. Make sure you're waiting for your confirmations. Don't just rush into a trade. Make sure you're seeing clear market structure change and bearish divergence if you can. So remember to always be patient before you enter a trade, and do not enter your trade until your confirmations are met. One more thing is to be aware that from this high now, based on the low, we can pull out a fib level to give us an idea as to where that that short may come. It's coming at around here. All right, so be aware of that. All right, well, there you have it. That's another daily update. If you found this video helpful, do hit the subscribe button and click like, just so you can get more videos like this. See you next time.